gathered together in this place today to worship the God who is making all things new. The creator not just of history, not just of how things have been, but the ongoing creator of how things will be. God is making all things new. Change is not something that we find easy. Change brings about a certain amount of anxiety. I have been in contact with members of this congregation just in the past week, several, 5, 6 congregation members who are dealing with overwhelming change this week, overwhelming situations that a month ago didn't see coming. There is reason that we have anxiety around change. We prefer the comfort of the familiar. We don't know what change will bring. And yet, we worship a God who is making all things new. Sometimes it doesn't feel that way to me. Sometimes it feels to me when I look in the mirror that God is making all things old. I am sometimes astonished. Literally, I am sometimes astonished when I look in the mirror. I remember vividly people I hung out with when I was in my 20s and 30s and dreams I had in my 40s and 50s. These are very much a part of me. I have a sense that this is still who I am until I look in the mirror and then I see that I'm changing. I'm aging. Now, I think in some ways aging is one of our most challenging changes. It's the heat of summer gives way to the storms of fall, gives way to the cold of winter, and all of a sudden we're another year older. It just keeps going and going. And, to be honest, I think if we're going to really get at the root of change from the beginning, I think a lot of the fear around aging is fear around death. We have a sense that these changes are constant until they come to one certainty that we're aware of, which is death. And as we get closer, we begin asking questions like, how many more years do I have? What will it be like? There's a fascinating article in Time magazine this week which begins, if life wanted to mess with you, it couldn't have come up with a better way than death, especially the lead up. Your strength flags, your world narrows. Much of what once gave you pleasure and satisfaction is now gone. But as it turns out, happiness is still very much with you, often even more so than before. This is astonishing. Wait a minute. Happiness is still very much with you. Now, I've certainly experienced, and many of us have experienced, there used to be nothing gave me more joy than playing basketball. Nothing in the world could be so all-engaging, joyful experience than running up and down the court, up and down, up and down. And I just don't do that anymore, because if I do it, I will hurt. I will be in pain. I will not be able to walk the next day, even if I don't sprain my ankle. And yet, happiness is still with you. This article referred to a study of 30-year-olds and 70-year-olds that found actually a higher level of happiness among 70-year-olds. That's astonishing. The happiness of the 70-year-olds was described like this. I'm going to die. What else is new? Meanwhile, I've got all this joy. I've got family. I've got friends. So what changes are you going through right now? What is giving you anxiety? Is it around jobs? Is it around layoff? Are there changes in your housing situation? That can be very disruptive. Are you worried about changes you're going through in a relationship? Some of us are scheduling classes for this semester. Some of us have a whole new schedule this semester. That can be very unnerving. Change always brings anxiety, but this morning we're continuing our faith conversation about change, and we're going to have the Dare that didn't come out right. We're going to dare to look at more T's than anxiety. There are more T's than anxiety when it comes to dealing with change. And we're going to look at a few in particular. One is possibility. If there is anxiety with change, there is also possibility. And we're also going to look at intentionality. If there is possibility, we can be intentional about pursuing the possibilities. And then we're going to look at curiosity. One of the most powerful ways to engage change is around curiosity. So let's start with possibility. Now, many of us would prefer to avoid the change altogether. We'd rather stay comfortable because comfort is, well, it's comfortable. And that's often preferable to the anxiety of change. But the only way to get better is to change. The only way to move forward is to change. We're connecting this morning with a God who is making all things new, who is leading us forward. The only way to move forward is to change. And the book of Revelation describes change as not some accidental spiral that leads down to death, but that change is the ongoing work of the Creator. Change is holy. Change is God move intentionally forward. A new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and earth have passed away. A holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "The home of God is with mortals. God will dwell with us. We will be God's people. God wiping every tear from our eyes. Death will be no more. Mourning and crying and pain will be no more." And the one seated on the throne said, "Behold, I make all things new." Revelation 21 holds out the possibility that God is overcoming even death. And this is at the core of the gospel message. Jesus challenges the way of the world, challenges empire, challenges society, confronts injustice to the point that they kill him, execute him, and that is not the end of the story. The gospel story moves to the brink of death, into death, beyond death, and explicitly names overcoming death. Victory is in the overcoming of even death. "I know the plans I have for you," says your God, "plans for your welfare and not harm, to give you a future with hope." Possibility is all in change, more in change than anxiety is. And we do not have to keep possibility vague. Intentionality allows us to live specifically toward possibility. We don't have to just think that maybe there will be something good that will happen, but we can name that something good that will happen, and we begin moving toward that dream, that possibility that we're being called to. So what are the specific possibilities for you in the changes that you're going through right now? What are the possibilities for new relationship? What are the possibilities for growing deeper in your relationship with God? What are the possibilities for becoming more of who you are within these changes that you're going through? I love the intentionality I see happening in our church right now. We're going through a transition together. And that's a wonderful way to have a faith conversation about something that we're actually going through together. We're moving toward July 1st, 2019, when I will step down as the pastor and somebody new will be here. And we're seeing incredible possibility in that, and we're not allowing that to just be vague possibility or something that might happen, but we're naming the possibility. We have named a group of people who have formed a pastoral search team who are intentionally talking with all the members of the congregation, intentionally asking the questions. What are your values? What do you want to see? What do you want to see in a new pastor? Who are we? What is our theology? What do we believe? What are the things we value most? Intentionally naming the dream. And then beginning to put that into action. When we begin to know who we are and we know what we stand for, then we know how to choose the choices that we're moving through. At their meeting last week, they were talking about our theology. What do we believe about God? What do we believe about resurrection? We're getting more clear than we've ever been about who we are. In the midst of change, we're getting clearer about what we're about and what we stand for. And this portends great intentionality and great possibility as we move forward. So we invite all of us into these changes. Friday night, I was reminiscing with some folks that I was involved with in the Philippines about 30-some years ago, 35 years ago. And we were all very much engaged, 1983, 84, 85. We were talking about 1983, what happened in 1983, what the possibilities were, what happened. We were engaged in this reminiscing. And I would say that 15 years from now, 20 years from now, some of us in this room will be gathered together reminiscing about what happened in 2018, what happened in 2019. We should be aware of what we're a part of here. We are giving birth to the new church. We are giving birth to the new church. The church is dying all around us. Every institution of the church is dying, crumbling in some of the most shocking fashion. The stories we read in the papers, the situations that are coming are shocking. The church is dying in large and small ways. We are giving birth to the new church. God is always creating all things new. When things no longer serve the purpose for which they were created, they need to die off so that something new can be born into space. And we right now in the year 2018 and the 2019 are giving birth to the new church. We're making bold moves already. We have already made a decision to exit from an institution that we have been a part of from the beginning. Because we have determined that the movement God is calling us to is leading us in that direction. We have the opportunity to be here. And, we really want to engage with this moment. When you begin to reminisce about this 15, 20 years ago, you really want to have some stories to share. You want to really have been a part of something big. Be here. Participate. Invite your friends. This is an incredible opportunity. Invite people to come and be a part of this. Giving birth to the new church is no small thing. And another component I want to invite us to with this intentionality is curiosity. Because with all the intentionality in the world, we cannot control change. Change will take its course. Change is bigger than us. The new heaven and the new earth that God is bringing to birth is beyond our intention. Does not diminish our intention one bit. We need to be very intentional. The more intentional we are, the more committed we are to the possibilities, the more magnificent will be the change. But there is also grace. There is also a love that is bigger than us, that is moving in this process and guiding us and leading us. So this third T that I want to invite us to is curiosity. If we can engage the world with curiosity, wondering what's happening, engaging with what's happening, not fearfully but joyfully entering into with curiosity. I was reading an article in the Christian Century this week about holy curiosity, the holiness of curiosity. Conversations aren't very interesting if there's no curiosity. If you're not really that interested in me and what I'm about, we're going to have a very boring conversation. If I'm not interested in you, if I don't have things I want to know, if I'm not excited about the possibility of getting to know who you are, asking probing questions, finding out exciting answers, maybe taking things a little bit over the boundary and really getting into some exciting territory, that's where the excitement is, with that curiosity. So we can ask questions about the text. Curiosity is not about answers as much as it's about questions, about raising bold questions. We can ask questions about this text. Why does it have to be a bride adorned for her husband? Why does that have to be the image? You know, why not a bride adorned for her bride? Or why not a whole other image altogether? Why does this have to be about the New Jerusalem? Why can't it be about the New Bronx? Well, it can be if we're willing to ask the question. You know, there's amazing things happening in the scriptures, but they're telling the stories out of their own cultural captivity. The stories are coming to us out of patriarchal society, out of Jerusalem-centric society. So yeah, those are the kind of images we're going to get. But what does all things new look like in our world? What does it look like? What does the new Bronx coming down into this territory look like for us, or rising up, or engaging? What does it look like? We don't have to, you know, if we just get kind of literalistic and caught up in the symbols and the rules, then our curiosity can get sapped out. But if we're curious, if we remain engaged in the questioning process, then it can become ours. Jesus is always talking about those who have ears to hear, let them hear. Those who have eyes to see, let them see. Always trying to engage us in curiosity. Jesus was not a rule giver so much as a rule breaker, so much as a parable giver. Stories that have many possibilities to get our curiosity engaged. What is the meaning of the teaching? Could we compare it with a text of literature like the Psalm of Life by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow and see where that takes us? Tell me not in mournful numbers, life is but an empty dream. For the soul is dead that slumbers, and things are not what they seem. Life is real, life is earnest, and the grave is not its goal. Dust thou art, to dust returnest, was not spoken of the soul. Not enjoyment and not sorrow is our destined end or way, but to act that each tomorrow finds us further than today. This is a faith conversation. And in a faith conversation, we get close to connect with the God who is making all things new. We get to follow God forward. We get to move in a new direction through into a new possibility, and we are not passive participants in this journey. We are active, engaged participants. Not only is there possibility, but we bring intentionality. We are in touch with who God's calling us to be, and we are intentional about being those persons, even in the midst of overwhelming change that throws us for a loop, change that knocks us off our center, change that makes us wonder where we're going next. Intentional moving forward and curiosity. What is going on? What are the possibilities? And how am I called to engage them? Gracious God, we give you thanks for this life. What a crazy life it is. God, we open ourselves with holy curiosity to who you are. You are always baffling us, always surprising us, always showing us a possibility we didn't even imagine could be. Holy God, as we are curious, may we also be intentional in being the people that we know you have called us to be, opening ourselves to the incredible possibilities beyond what we could even ask or imagine. God, we give you thanks this day for the journey we're on and for your presence in that journey. Gracious God, we give you thanks. Amen.
Welcome to our celebration of Holy Communion. We come to this table each